All right. Good evening and welcome to this Tuesday, March 21st, 2023 meeting of the Raymore Planning and Zoning Commission. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we'll move into roll call. Commissioner Bowie is going to be absent this evening. Commissioner Engert?
Present.
Commissioner Faulkner?
Present.
Vice Chair Fizer?
Present.
Commissioner Manser?
Present.
Secretary Peterman?
Present.
Commissioner Urquia?
Present.
Mayor Turnbow?
Present.
And Chairman Wiggins is here, so we do have 8 tonight. We have no personal appearances scheduled, so we will move into item 5, our consent agenda, approval of minutes from March 7, 2023 meeting. Would entertain a motion to dispose of this item, please.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir, Mr. Faulkner.
I move that we approve minutes from our March 7th, 2023 meeting.
I'll second.
I've got a motion by Commissioner Faulkner, second by Commissioner Urquia to approve the minutes from the March 7th, 2023 meeting. Any discussion of the matter? Seeing none, all in favor? Passes unanimously, 8-0. Thank you. I'll move us through unfinished business as we have none into one item tonight for new business. Item A, case 23007, Timber Trails mixed use, rezoning from R3 AP to PUD and preliminary development plan. This item does require a public hearing, which I will open at this time, and I would invite the applicant to please come forward to present your case.
Mr. Chair, I will take over the computers here for a minute.
Thank you, sir. And also for the record, if the applicant would please state their name and address for the record as well.
Yes, hello. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Madam Vice Chair, and members of the Planning and Zoning Commission. My name is Matt Tapp. I'm part of the team at Griffin Riley Property Group, address 21 Southeast 29th Terrace, Lee Summit, Missouri, 64082. I think Dylan is pulling up our presentation. Can all the commissioners see it? Mm-hmm. Yeah, perfect. All right. Mr. Mayor, I want to say hello too. Forgot to say hello. So we are proposing, as staff indicated, a rezoning to PUD and preliminary development plan for, as it's termed now, Timber Trails mixed use. Next slide. Oh, and that was our agenda: introduction, site location, development plan. And I won't go through it all. The first is our introduction. I thought a good brief introduction of who Griffin Riley Property Group is may be in order. You may be familiar with us, you may not be, so I wanted to run through that pretty quickly. Next slide. You can see on your slide here, this is our about us, or who we are. We're a full-service commercial real estate development and management company. We specialize in delivering best-in-class products across multiple different arrays. We specialize in multifamily, retail, some industrial. We do ground-up new development. We also acquire existing assets. You can see our vision, mission. I won't go into the nitty-gritty, but we believe in doing development the right way and working with communities to deliver truly distinctive products. You can see our values there as well. Next slide, Dylan. And this is just a little bit of a rundown of our expertise and experience. We have over 900,000, or have had 900,000, or currently have, in our portfolio of residential and commercial properties. We have a strong support team of equity partners and banking and financial partners to get projects over the finish line. We've proven our worth in delivering products and projects to their fullest and the best possible way. And you can see our approach is working with the community, and we have with this example, and we look forward to continuing our partnerships with different communities. Next slide. We believe steadfastly in working with either our neighbors, our community partners, school districts to deliver, again, highly distinctive, unique projects that take the community to the next level. A little bit of history. You may have heard of a company called Summit Homes. Fred DeLibero started that company and sold it. Started Griffin Riley Property Group, which is the commercial real estate side of things, in the house, about 2016. And since then, Jake Lovelace, who is here, has led the team, and then I've joined them in 2021, and we've hit the ground running. And we're really excited to present Timber Trails Mixed Use to you for consideration tonight. Next slide. You can see Fred, he has a strong background in Lee Summit and Lee Summit Planning Commission, multiple projects across KC Metro. I won't go into too much nitty-gritty here, but Fred has quite a bit of experience both in single-family and commercial real estate. Next slide. That's Mr. Lovelace sitting behind me. He's the pretty face of the group, and Jake worked with Fred at Summit Homes and delivered a number of projects there, moved over to Griffin Riley when it began, and finished Residence of Echelon. We'll get into other projects here in a little bit, as well as some Raymore projects and some other community projects. That's myself. I come with a background in community planning as well as economic development. My face may look familiar, as I was the economic development director for City of Raymore, 2015 to 2020. And then I went on to Platte County EDC and joined the crew at Griffin Riley Piper Group, and here I am presenting. So that is myself. And also I'm a Bearcat, so I don't know if there's any Bearcats in the room, but once a Bearcat, always a Bearcat. So a little bit of project portfolio overview of what we have done, what we're doing, to kind of give you a smattering of what we're doing. So this is our Blackwell mixed use. This is on the east side of Lee Summit, if you're familiar with the Lee Summit community, going out 50 Highway towards Lone Jack, the new Blackwell interchange. This is kind of the northeastern quadrant, I'll say, of that intersection, where we have, in this slide, we have our retail center, which is almost 38,000 square feet, so a pretty big multi-tenant. And then as well as our luxury apartments, residences at Blackwell. That's 252 units, full-service clubhouse, amenities. Next slide. And then the other two components of this mixed-use plan, since there is existing single-family abutting into the north and west, we decided to pursue what's called BTR or SFR, but that's essentially an entire single-family neighborhood designed and built for rent. Super hot product right now. Certainly could talk more about that later. And then we also have our Reunion product, which is a single-story, fourplex townhome product geared towards a 55-plus consumer. Next. You all should be familiar, hopefully, with this project. If not, I'd encourage you to drive down Dean Avenue south of here. And this is our Venue luxury townhome product. We've got our move-in started in January, February, and we keep adding more and more folks to this very exciting project. So this is 204 units of luxury townhomes with a full clubhouse, full amenity. They just dug up the pool, I believe, a couple days ago. Jake could probably confirm, as they finish out the construction of the clubhouse and amenities. So we're really excited to see this continue to build momentum in Raymore in the south end. Next. What started it all? Residences of Echelon, luxury apartment complex there in the south side of Lee Summit, 150 Highway west of 291, kind of by Walmart now. Now Walmart is there. But this is 244 luxury apartments and opened in 2019 and quickly leased up, and really great project that really spurred an entire corridor. Next. So now, how about this particular project? The site location is about 22.3 acres south of 58 Highway, boxed between Dean Avenue, Outer Road, and then the new extension of Johnston Drive. Benton House, if you're familiar with that is in the very southwestern kind of edge of our site. Timber Trails Townhomes began, so that is why we have a little bit of a unique property line, which certainly has had some impacts, some effects on our design, which we can certainly talk about here in the future here. So our development plan. The first component I want to discuss is the luxury apartments. This is lots 2, 3, and 5, and the lot numbers go in clockwise formation from the hotel around back towards the apartments. So 2, 3, and 5. This is on about 17.1 acres. It's 4 buildings. They're anywhere from 3 to 5 stories. The 5 stories is very, very limited based on topography. As the ground falls, it generates a 5th story. Most of them are 3 to 4 stories. 299 units as it's designed right now. Around 487 parking stalls, that can give or take here as we go through design. And then again, a full clubhouse, full amenities, resort style, a pool, clubhouse. And that is the elevation drawing in the lower portion of the slide. And I'm not expecting you to be able to see every little detail, but that is meant to show you the level of architectural style and elevated level of quality for the apartments. Next, we have the retail center, and that is in the southeastern portion of the site, about 2.3 acres, 13,560, give or take, square feet. We have up to 10 tenant spaces, but of course, it depends on the recruited tenant's demands as to how much space they're looking for, maybe an end cap or drive-through. That's to be determined. And then 88 parking stalls as it stands. Next. The hotel site is up along the outer road because we feel with such strong visibility that a hotel makes a lot of sense there. And I've already had a couple of conversations with a few hotel developers, so that seems to be going fairly well as we try and navigate which flagships make the most sense at that location. So right now we have it as slated for 80 plus or minus keys or beds and 125 parking stalls. And you can see, as we're showing it now, that the architecture matches the apartments and the retail center. It's all meant to be part of a mixed use. I don't mind two-dimensional pictures, but a third dimension always helps, and kind of seeing it on a human scale certainly assist in my review of it. So these are screenshots which will hopefully be able to show the fly-through, but this is the apartment's exterior. As you can see, we believe firmly in different types of building materials, all top quality, as well as I call it dips and dives of the architectural style. So it's not just one big rectangle or 3D rectangle. We believe in having different angles, roof lines, so that it brings architectural interest and brings it to scale for both cars and people. Sorry, Dylan. On the right-hand side is the backside of the story-and-a-half clubhouse on the pool side, meant to show you the level of quality of resort style. Next slide. This is the retail center. Again, we got some communal areas giving you the top-notch architectural materials, building materials, architectural style, matching the apartments and hopefully the hotel. Next. Speaking of the hotel, again, as it's slated now, which again, each flagship has a little different architectural style, but generally in the same form and function as the apartments and the retail center. So that's our conceptual design of the hotel. And now, without further ado, is the fly-through visualization, as hopefully we can get it going. And do we have any sound, Dylan? No? Okay, good. We don't need the sound. I just want to make sure. So as you see, we're flying into the entryway of the development. So the apartments and the hotel are on the left-hand side. This would be the outer road. This is now flying towards the front of the hotel through the parking lot. This is the hotel again. This is the backside again of the clubhouse pool. We prefer a larger size pool, outdoor seating, community gathering areas, fire pit. Think about when you go to a really nice beach resort, that's the experience we're trying to duplicate or replicate here. This is the front side of one of the apartment buildings, a 3-4 split. You see the tuck under garages with the access fully covered, interior hallways, elevator served. In the retail center. I think that should be about the end, Dylan. So hopefully we really like to show those 3D visualizations, because it's one thing to look down on a site plan or even see elevation drawings. It's a whole nother element to be able to kind of fly through it and see how the cars, see how the customers, residents interact with it. All that being said, and understand the level of quality we're talking about, we wanted to cover a little bit about the targeted outcomes. So what we try and do is say, okay, this is what we want to build, this is what we want to bring to the community. How does it relate back to the community's strategic goals, objectives? So next slide, Dylan. So we went and took the 2017 City of Raymore Strategic Plan, which I believe is being updated but this is the latest version and showcasing what all the check boxes we're hitting here. So the first of which is enhancing the first impression of the community. I drive down I-49 quite a bit to come to the venue to do walkthroughs of buildings and see how the progress is going. And I cannot help but look to my left or my right as I'm leaving Raymore. This is a highly visible site. As such, we want to present the absolute best first foot forward for Raymore. This is the billboard of Raymore. We want to have truly Class A luxury apartments. I know a lot of folks mentioned that, and you ask 10 different people, they might get 10 different answers, but we know that based on the market dynamics and conditions, this will be the nicest, one of the nicest apartments in the Raymore Belton, North Cass region. So we kind of check that off. Goal 3.1.1, expand the commercial tax base and cultivate a climate for prosperous business growth and development. So we feel that with these new residences coming to studios, 1 bedrooms and some 2 bedrooms, these are folks that tend to have higher disposable incomes. These are people that you really want to see welcoming to your community. They want to spend their money. They like to spend their money on different experiences, restaurants, grocery stores, Sam's Club, Walmart, et cetera, et cetera. So we feel that really gives a spark to the commercial base of Raymore. And then the last goal we wanted to highlight is to provide quality, diverse housing options that meet the needs of current and future communities. So with the different mixture of unit type studios to 2-bedroom plus den, we're definitely more towards a studio 1-bedroom type of experience. We have, and I'm sure Mr. Crass and Mr. Gress and others that have talked with me before, we have these large bookends of demographics in our communities right now. We've got the downsizing baby boomers or just downsizers looking to say, hey, we still want to live in Raymore, or we want to be close to our kids or grandkids in Raymore. We'd love to have a studio and a luxury apartment complex. Lock the key. We can go to KCI, fly off to wherever we want to. On the other side of the bookend is younger folks, either with or without dogs or with or without kids. We call them sinks and dinks. Single income, no kids, dual income, no kids. They are the gold mine of retail and of community spending. So we feel that our products directly cater and market towards these super hot demographics that we're experiencing right now. Next slide. I wanted to highlight a few key items to bring to your attention as maybe you've read through the staff report, but wanted to cover a couple of few things. I believe, there we go. The first of which is the street running through our development, which connects Johnston Drive, our future Johnston Drive, which will be completed, up to Outer Road. We believe that it should be dedicated as public. We feel that there is a direct public purpose in the sense that many residents, visitors, and customers will be visiting, experiencing our retail, our hotel, and to a certain lesser degree, the apartments. And this is also the vehicular and bike ped connector from Johnston to Outer Road. So we feel that there's a clear public purpose. And we are proposing a ribbon curb, which we've done before in other products, but there's a ribbon curb or a slight curb between the private parking areas, which we are fully agreeing to and understand we would maintain, along with in the public roadways. So there's a pretty clear distinction. And then, like I said before, the parking areas we definitely believe should be maintained by us, the developer/owner. Next slide, Dylan. And then the other key item I wanted to discuss with the Planning and Zoning Commission is the driveway access for retail on Dean Avenue. Trans Systems is in attendance. Mr. Matt Parker is here if he answers any, I won't need to answer any further technical questions, but we believe between the spacing, the site distance, then the operational aspect to the drive aisle or the driveway access, we feel that it is warranted to have full access there. We'd love to have that conversation with both staff and the Planning and Zoning Commission. But we've already started talking with our tenant broker, or our retail broker, my apologies, retail broker, and we've started talking with tenants. And my experience in both the public side and private side, a number of tenants would require full access, direct full access. You're talking about Dunkin' Donuts or whomever, AM users, PM users, restaurants, especially food and beverage, they really need to see that direct full access. And so that really opens up our tenant recruitment as we want to deliver and attract the best retailers to Raymore and to this location. It is a second, third, maybe even fourth tier off of 58 Highway, so it's a little bit of a challenge to draw retailers or retail tenants there, but with full direct access, that certainly helps our efforts, as we've already been talking to some folks. That is it for the formal presentation. Again, my name is Matt Tapp. Jake Lovelace is here at Griffin Riley. We've got our architect, NSPJ, here as well, and our engineer, which is Jim Long over at Schlegel. So we have our full A-team here to answer any possible questions staff or Planning and Zoning Commission may have. So thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. As is customary, I always give commission members an opportunity to ask a couple questions of the applicant before we move into staff report. But always, with the idea that staff will probably have lots of information to provide us before we get into deep questioning. Anybody have any questions of the applicant? Mr. Mayor?
One question, Matt, you might be able to answer this, and maybe Mike as well. I see on the presentation picture that you had in the presentation of the overhead, and I'm looking at the schematic of the diagram with regard to the roundabout or the cul-de-sac that comes off the existing townhomes. Can you explain the difference between what was seen in the picture, which looked like a dead-end cul-de-sac, to what is displayed on the graphic that we have in our packet? Because it almost looks like they're connected to your private drive there.
Mr. Mayor, if I may ask, what graphic are you talking about there? What page number so we can reference it?
I don't know, I pulled it out here. It says C1.0.
Oh, okay.
It's page 23 out of 54 on our screen, or maybe our packet.
Oh, yeah. I gotcha.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, if you're talking about C1.0,
Yeah,
that's actually the same graphic.
as the overhead.
Yes, sir. So what may be a little, not misleading, but kind of confusing is there's a little bit of an access there meant for fire trucks, but that would be a controlled access. You can't really see it on this. If you can see our slide right now, Mr. Mayor, is that the difference that you're talking about? Is
Yeah,
on
that's the difference I'm talking about.
Yeah, we've been working with South Metro as well as the city on, how can we provide emergency access through that cul-de-sac? So most vehicular control would not be able to go through that access point. It'll just be for fire trucks with controlled access.
Because this is where cops and firemen usually butt heads on stuff like this. Is from a cop's perspective, I look at it from crime prevention through environmental design, which I have a certificate in, and I like to see that area, that townhome area, be a little bit more private for them and not have any kind of access for drive-through, because as it says, natural access control involves decreasing opportunities for crime by denying access to crime targets and creating a perception of risk in offenders. And I think one of the things that if that were easily accessible, it gives a better opportunity for criminal activity. And I see your point about the fire department not wanting to have to turn around a big truck because they go on every ambulance call now, and have to turn around in that cul-de-sac. So
It's only meant for emergency vehicles, sir. So yeah, it would not be for any.
So how would that be accessed? In what way? Just go ahead and drive over the grass?
Yeah, so we're still trying to fine tune the final design, and I believe Jake was the one kind of talking with South Metro, but it'd be like either paved stones or some type of system where it's not meant to be fully utilized day in and day out or weekly. It's just only on emergency purposes.
Okay.
And it would still be, there'd be I think an access easement. I don't know what to ask, but if not, it is maintained, it's our private property, so we would maintain the area. It would just be for emergency vehicle access.
I just didn't want it to look like it was a regular accessible
It will not.
drive.
There'll be no curb cut. You know, it'd be very tough. You'll have to work really hard.
Because I
to
would like for us to be able to put up a sign there to the entrance to the townhomes that says no outlet.
Okay.
You know, in other words, so you have to turn around within that community to.
We'd love to work with city staff
Okay.
on making that happen.
All right. Thanks.
Yes, sir.
Any additional questions for the developer or applicant at the time, or should we move on to staff report? All right, I will go on to staff report. Staff, please.
Thank you, Commissioner. Mr. Eppert and I, there's a lot of history with this particular property within the Timber Trails subdivision. So tonight, we're going to go a little non-traditional. I'm going to cover the history of this particular property in kind of the context, and then Mr. Eppert did the majority of the review on this project, so he'll go through some of the comments and more of the details with the application. But to start out, as was indicated, the Griffin Riley Property Group is requesting a PUD and preliminary development plan for the 22.3 acres, which is currently zoned R3A, multiple family planned district, on the site that's generally located north of what will be future Johnston Drive and west of Dean Avenue. The growth management plan does identify this property as appropriate for high-density residential development, and it classifies Dean Avenue as a minor arterial and Johnston Drive as a minor collector roadway. There were several site photographs depicting the property in its current, mostly undeveloped form. And because tonight it does require a public hearing, tonight's meeting was advertised in the March 2nd edition of the North Cass Herald. And then tomorrow, this item will be pushed to a later city council meeting due to staff being out of the office, but it will be advertised tomorrow in the edition for the city council meeting coming up later next month. Because it is a public hearing, the items of record include the mailed notices to adjoining property owners, the notice of publication, the Unified Development Code, the application, the growth management plan, the staff report, the preliminary development plan, and the MOU as required by city code. Going into the history a little bit, this property dates all the way back to 2004 when the Timber Trails preliminary plat was originally approved. Within that, this specific portion originally was approved for approximately 336 townhome units spread across the overall acreage. To date, what is left to be, what is approved but not built yet, there's approximately 268 townhomes that could still be built under that current plan today. The first final plat for the Timber Trails townhomes development was approved in February of 2005, which included 17 buildings. That's where you get the 68 units that are existing today. And then the next two topics relate, just to highlight, there have been similar proposals for this type of use on this project in the past. In 2007, the property owner, Hutt Midwest, and a development company, the Yarco Company, appeared at a work session. That group was proposing a mixed-use, mixed-income development, which would have been subject to financing by the Missouri Housing Development Commission for some tax credits. At that point, the council and the community expressed overwhelming opposition to that, and that project actually never went forward back in 2007. However, a year later in 2008, Hutt Midwest filed a joint application with the Dalmart Group, which filed a similar application for the use of the property. It included an amendment to the existing preliminary plat to allow for the construction of 340 apartment units on the project, which would have been just market rate units. There was no tax credit or other component to that proposal. The city council actually did approve that on August 10th, 2009, but then no development applications were filed. And so in staff's research, that preliminary plan for that particular project actually expired due to lack of a final development plan. And through the requests that were filed in 2007, 2009, basically between 2007 and today, the current preliminary plat is what is approved, includes those remaining 268 townhomes. Like I said, those are currently approved and could be built today under a final development plan. What was interesting about the zoning for that previous project is the application was filed prior to the adoption of the Unified Development Code in 2009, and therefore it was able to make the proposal under the previous zoning, which was R3A. Typically now, that apartment uses would not be allowed under that existing zoning district. And so it's been corrected, but that was an important piece of that previous project. Moving forward, in 2014, August of 2014, the city council approved the conditional use permit for a senior living facility, which is Benton House. That was approved on August 11th of 2014. And then in September of 2014, the Planning and Zoning Commission approved the site plan for that particular project. More recently, the city council approved the PUD rezoning for the Alara project, which is the 170-lot detached single-family project to the south. It included 170 single-family lots in addition to a 9-unit live-work concept, which was really similar to an attached single-family product, more or less. No applications have been filed for a final development plan for that project to date. It is still owned by Hutt Midwest, but the application currently is still valid in terms of the zoning. And then more specifically with this project, in 2001, October of 2021, the applicant Griffin Riley did file a initial application for this very same project. Through some initial discussions with staff and the council, they put that on hold to have some further discussions, which we have concluded at this time, and they refiled their application here earlier this year. The most recent activity, though, within the overall Timber Trails development would be the Timber Trails third plat. That was the 38 single-family residential lots across Dean Avenue, was approved with the council in September of 2022. That application is what keeps the existing preliminary plat currently valid for the overall subdivision, is that activity adjacent to this parcel. That concludes the history. Unless there are any questions, I'll pass it over to Mr. Eppert to highlight some of the other information in the staff report.
Thank you, sir. Just real quick, since he did offer, does anybody have any questions regarding the history? All right, thank you. Dylan?
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Grass. If you all will indulge me, there's several comments in here, and a lot of the things that you're going to see are going to be, if this were to be approved tonight, there will be a lot of comments that we made in here that would actually apply to the final development plan. But a couple of the items that I'm going to highlight tonight is just for this application solely. With the rezoning, we do require a good neighbor meeting. That neighbor meeting was held right here in this council chambers on March 8th. No one from the public did attend that. There were 3 members from staff, myself, Mr. Grass, and Mr. Keller, and then the applicant and their team were present. We stuck around for about 15 or 20 minutes. No one came in, and we've received no opposition or comments up to this point with the application that's been proposed. There are 4 deviations that have been presented, and I'll go through those briefly. With the bulk and dimensional standards for traditional zoning for the C3 and R3B proposed zoning districts within the proposed PUD, they include a decrease in the minimum lot area per dwelling unit from 2,000 square feet to 1,000 square feet, an increase in the maximum building height from lot 2, which would increase from 50 feet to 70 feet, an increase to the maximum building height for lots 3 and 5 from 50 feet to 60 feet, and then a decrease in the side yard setback for building A, the residential piece only, to accommodate an offset that if you notice on the north side of the property, there's a property line that deviates just a little bit. The applicant did a fine job with the amenities, so I won't go too far into that, but they did propose a wet regional detention basin, internal walking trails, covered residential parking structures, tuck under garage parking, elevators, and a clubhouse with pool deck. There is also a proposed that the density, and you'll see on comment number 11, there's a table there with just recent projects that have been approved or existing. So the Manor Homes of Eagle Glen, the Lofts of Fox Ridge, and Watermark. You can see kind of the differentiation between the density there. However, with the preliminary plat as it was originally approved, there was never a commercial piece that was thought about, and so obviously with that commercial piece now taking up portions of land, that density now goes up. And so that's kind of the change there that you'll see. Parking, we were just going to brush on. There were no deviations that were requested, so with the final development plan, the table that you see below there will be what we hold the applicant to for when site plan comes in front of this body. The standards for the just proposed uses within the C2 and C3 zoning, and no deviations for the permitted conditional use or prohibited uses were proposed, so we would use that same zoning or that same use table as it applies today. One of the items that we wanted to highlight was the Planning Commission as well as City Council may designate divisible geographic sections such as the phasing plan, which you'll see highlighted in your packet within the MOU. The city has taken on the responsibility as part of a 2020 GEO bond project for the future construction of Johnson Drive. So that will be something the city is taking on and is currently under design for that project right now. South Metro had a couple of items As the applicant did request a couple of variations from what the fire code relates to, they requested to modify a 150-foot access requirement from all parts of the apartment buildings and proposed 200 feet to all those. The fire marshal did grant that request in exchange for a standpipe to be installed on the rear location of the buildings for the fire department to connect their hoses. This variance would not apply to the hotel or retail buildings. And then the applicant also requested that no sidewalk be required for the standpipe connection above. The fire marshal did grant that request as well, and clearly just requested that with the standpipe clearly be identified, and the sidewalk was not part of any other sidewalk or required exits or discharges. And then you'll also see with the PUD, it does require an MOU, which is in your packet, and actually we'll pause at this time for any questions. But then after that, we'll hand it over to Mr. Krast to kind of complete this.
Anybody have any immediate questions? Yes, sir, Mr. Urquilla.
I was just curious, has any consideration been given to a right turn lane off of Dean into the retail space area?
I imagine.
So I think that'll go into Mr. Krast's portion of the report.
Okay.
Anybody else have any other questions, Mr. Everett, before we go to Mr. Krast's report? Good. Thank you, sir. Mr. Krast.
Thank you. In response to Mr. Kia's question, no, because staff strongly recommends that access not be provided. It's only 300 feet from Johnson Drive. Dean Avenue is an arterial. Access should be limited on arterial roads. There's always a difference between the theoretical information that we get as part of a transportation plan to what is the practical and what is actually measured after things open. I want to point specifically to the Cadence property, where the city is in the future going to be restricting Kentucky Road and that access to a 3/4 access. We got information at the time that was constructed that access would be, the access to 58 would be heavily used for westbound. When we did our corridor study later, 2 cars during peak hour use that driveway. A vast majority, which staff knew, a vast majority of the traffic goes to the south, goes out to the traffic signal. There's also problems with the geometry of that. There's no stacking distance, just real concerns with that access. The same with the proposal that the applicant is requesting that the road through this development be a public road. When we look at this, it really doesn't serve a public need. It's a commercial development. It is no different than the argument that traffic is going to drive on it is no different than Raymore Galleria, where there's an extensive roadway network that connects various properties. The pedestrian connection will actually be along Johnson Drive. And as far as access to the hotel, there will be potentially access to the outer road. In addition, the applicant is showing parking along that loop road, which is in direct violation of Section 425.020C, which says direct access to off-street parking spaces from the street is prohibited. So you're asking folks, if there's going to be that much traffic on this road, now you're asking them to back out onto a highly traveled road. So the rest of the development, stormwater is being handled. The sewer and water is already in place. We just feel very strongly about the transportation network for this development.
Could you explain just a little bit more? You mentioned backing out onto a road where okay, I see. Would that be like for instance lot 2 directly across, like from the clubhouse parking lot and stuff?
Excuse me, on the north side of the road.
Okay, I see that now. Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Krast, Public Works?
Mr. Chair, I was just going to go ahead and conclude this report.
Yes, sir, please do.
And then we can open back up.
Thank you.
City staff does recommend to the Planning Commission to accept the staff proposed findings of fact in forward case 23007, the rezoning of 22.31 acres from R3AP, multifamily residential plan district, to PUD, planned unit development, to the City Council with recommendation of approval, and that would be subject to the following conditions. The first being the proposed loop street connecting to Johnston Drive and the outer road remains as a private street. 2 would be the traffic impact study or similar study be conducted for the proposed access onto Dean Avenue, being a minor arterial from Lot 4 prior to the approval of a final development plan for Lot 4. And finally, the approval from MoDOT to obtain the proposed connections, to gain approval from MoDOT for the, essentially the access point there off the outer road, and so they would need to obtain MoDOT approval for that. That would conclude staff report.
Thank you, sir. I will go ahead and allow commissioners, if you guys have any questions of the applicant, staff, any of the departments, before we jump into any public comments. But does anybody have any questions of city staff or the applicant? You always do.
Well,
You always have questions.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
I will, but I believe I'd rather hear the public comments first.
Okay, fair enough. Mr. Urquia?
I did have one other question as far as traffic. Is there any talk of like speed bumps then through the private drive area to maybe discourage folks who don't live there from kind of swooping through?
If the applicant chooses to do that, they certainly can do that.
All right, well then, since this is a public hearing, which was opened a while ago, I will take this opportunity for anybody from the public, if they want to come forward and speak on this matter, before we move on to additional questions from the commission. If anybody from the public would like to speak, please invite you to do so at this time. Okay, I'm not seeing anybody. So I'll go ahead and leave the public hearing portion open just while we continue to discuss as commission. Mr. Faulkner, now that there is no public comments, would you like to inquire, sir?
I can start.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Quick comment, apologies, I could have brought this question a little earlier for staff. On page 8 of staff report, which is hiding from me. It's actually the 4th bullet down the page, Timber Trails 3rd plat located to the southwest of the subject property. I believe that should be southeast. So just easy to fix before this would go to council. I have a concern or question, and I can start with this to city staff, and then it can go to the developer, but I'm a little puzzled. There's a request, I think this must be page 8. Also, there's a request for Lot 1 and Lot 4 to be 2,000 square foot minimum, but Lot 1 is actually 127,000 square feet, and Lot 4 is 101,000 square feet. And I guess to start, I'm just wondering, why would this need to be 2,000 square foot minimum when the lots are actually much, much larger? To me, one of my concerns is it just sets maybe a bad precedent for quoting this 2,000 square foot minimum on a future development somewhere else in the city.
So a lot of it has to deal with the current zoning table. Within this C2 and C3, those are what the minimums would be. And so we're not saying that they can't go above that. It's just that it would need to be at least that in order to proceed with it with future development.
Okay, thank you. So it is consistent with that requirement.
It is consistent, yes.
Another concern, kind of similar, the maximum heights. These are obviously a lot taller, and I realize that there's probably not a whole lot of difference between the conceptual plan for the hotel, for instance, 4-story. I think that's 80 feet maximum building height permitted. And again, I'm concerned about going beyond what is needed on this development, simply because I think it sets a precedent.
So we actually had quite a bit of conversation back and forth between city staff and the applicant. And the hotel, I think, just because we have not necessarily narrowed down the hotel user, we didn't want to limit that. Okay. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to hit 80 feet specifically, but that was what was proposed. And so if this body felt differently, that this would be maybe your time. But as far as for the apartments, same thing. We actually, the applicant initially started out with 80 feet, and there was a little bit of a deviation initially, and so we were like, well, can we get it to go for, because it went from 60 feet to 80 feet, and we were like, well, we didn't understand the jump, and so we had worked through that and got them to go to 70. But they just wanted to make sure that we weren't restricting them too much to where the architectural features for that building would be cut off. And so that was the reasoning behind those.
Right, and I think you've given me a good answer, so thank you for that. Next question, probably really pretty trivial. In the, I guess it's in the MOU, there's on, I'm calling it, no, it's not actually the MOU, it's the big prints. Sheet C 1.1, sheet C 1.2. I don't believe I saw any location for trash receptacles outside of Building A and Building C. And the MOU on page 12 does say something about trash receptacles being centrally located. And again, perhaps the answer is that at this point in time, maybe the location of the trash receptacles doesn't need to be shown. It can be added at site plan. Is that
So city staff, again, had worked pretty diligently with the applicant, and one of our recommendations, specifically for the larger trash area along Johnston Drive, be moved to either the side or the rear, because as of right now, it's proposed in the front yard, which would not be allowed. And so that would be, kind of a deviation from what city staff could essentially approve, but wanted to bring it forward to this body for your all's input, because it was against our recommendation.
okay?
But I know there was an initially I think they started out with 2 trash enclosures. They've added a third, so I may defer to the applicant as far as the reasoning behind that.
Yeah, if applicant wants to address that, sure. Thank you.
Thanks for the question. So Jake Loveless, Griffin Riley Property Group. So the reason why we had a third trash enclosure out there was because we added one next to the hotel in an area that we thought made the most sense. The other 2 trash enclosures that we have out there, they're set up to be able to have a compactor at each one of those different locations. So there's not a trash enclosure at every single one of the different buildings, but we were trying to do our best to centrally locate those different trash enclosures that we had out there because they would be compactors. And then around those will have 4-sided architecture on them, typically like what we've done on our last couple of projects, so that they're decorated the entire way with stone or something along those lines. So they will have 4-sided architecture on them. They will have landscaping surrounding them. So we do our very best to make them look aesthetically pleasing for a trash enclosure.
Okay.
Thank you.
Would there, Mr. Lovelace, excuse me, while you're there, would there be any provision within a building? And I don't know if I'm picturing these correctly or not, but I think I heard mention of elevators, multiple floors. I'm assuming that there's probably some stairwells or hallways. Would there be a provision in the buildings for smaller amounts of trash that could be collected so somebody doesn't have to walk out to an enclosure at another building?
Sure, so good question. So we aren't planning on having a trash facility inside each one of those different buildings, but we will offer amenities like trash pickup at certain dates and certain times for the residents in the apartments. Yeah.
Thank you. Mr. Zur. Okay. In the MOU on pages 8 and particularly on page 15, well, before I get there, let me just verify. So to me, with this being a PUD, the MOU is a valid part of our case. It's valid for review. Is that correct?
You are considering that this evening.
Okay. And so within the MOU, pages 8 and particularly 15, there's some discussion about Chapter 1, or I guess it's Chapter 100 redevelopment plans. I think that's what it was called.
Yeah, on page 8
specific.
at the top, item number 3.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Got my documents.
The project
mixed
is
up.
proposed to be included within the boundaries of Chapter 100.
So would the Chapter 100 have, does Planning and Zoning Commission have any business concerning ourselves about Chapter 100?
No.
No. Okay, thank you. It's just because it was there, and
Yep.
then I ended up on the state's website, and we won't go there because it's not relevant.
It'll be
Thank
up to
you.
the developer and the city council, as
Yep.
well as developer and staff, to make a determination on the issuance of those Chapter 100 bonds.
Right. We'll let city council worry about that. Sorry. Okay. And I guess just for a couple of comments on the traffic, and Mr. Crass, thank you very much. I kind of got the gist of it from the engineering memo, and you've added to that tonight, and thank you for your review and comments. Originally, one of the first things that bothered me was dead-ending the streets in the existing townhome. I personally am probably in favor of connectivity. However, I also agree with the mayor's comments on security, and I'm well aware that dead ends and keyhole courts typically are regarded as more secure. So now you have a couple of factors kind of bucking each other, but I certainly appreciate Mayor Turnbow's comments there, and I think they're valid. After hearing this tonight, seeing it all again, I've kind of maybe changed my opinion. I'm less concerned about dead-ending the existing street there through the townhomes, because frankly, it's been dead-ended for years, and it apparently hasn't caused big issues. So based on that, that's not nearly as big a concern to me. Maybe not a concern at all. It's probably a wash either way. My original opinion before this evening's meeting was that making that a private road didn't really make a whole lot of sense to me. I did see it as another connection between Johnston Drive and the outer road, but I'm pretty much neutral on that. I think really my biggest concern right now about this case is the second access to the retail lot 4, and you know, I put a lot of weight on engineering's comment. I mean, it was pretty blunt. No direct access to the site should be provided, and so even with the condition of requiring a traffic study, I guess I'm wondering, you know, and I really appreciated Mr. Crass's comments this evening about theoretical versus actual, or however you said it very well. I was first concerned if a traffic study showed that second access was a bad idea, was the developer still willing to proceed? And now I'm just kind of in a quandary, because there's definitely a conflict there. I see the developer's point. If I was a retail business, obviously I would want access, but I have to agree with city engineering. It doesn't seem like a good thing to do. So that's.
Thank you, Mr. Faulkner. Do we have any comments or questions to my right over this way? Yes, sir, Mr.
I had a
Mansur.
quick question. Drive-through was mentioned for the possibility on the end of the retail building. I'm just wondering how that would be possible with the 30-foot landscape buffer. Was I mistaken when I heard about the drive-through?
I had heard the name Dunkin' Donuts, which would make me think of a drive-through, but I don't know if I necessarily recall it, but staff might.
Well, I think something to keep in mind is this is the preliminary, and so you will see the site plan come back before you, and so that could essentially make the building move a little bit further to make that drive-through more feasible. But yeah, you are correct in the fact that a drive-through as it lies today would probably not work.
Okay. And then, you know, being someone in the commercial real estate business, I definitely see, you know, particularly retail, I see the value of having that entrance to the retail space from Dean Avenue. I obviously hear Mr. Krass's concerns with that. I'm wondering if there's anything that the developer or the staff could propose for, like Mario mentioned earlier, a right turn only entrance to that area where we would block off the ability to turn left onto Dean. Is that something that's been considered?
We did discuss that briefly within our review, and I'll let Mr. Krass and Mr. Salisbury add any more details, but I think the notion behind the condition there is that there wasn't sufficient information in the traffic study to address that. And so what staff is saying is that if it were to be allowed, there could be a provision for a turn lane into that site or a median on Dean Avenue if there was sufficient width to further restrict something. But we didn't get to that point in our discussions or didn't receive the information that was needed to make any other decisions on that. And so I think that was the nature of our condition, that if in the future as part of a final development plan it is determined that it is needed, I think that would be a more in-depth study that staff would need to get more comfortable with that, as well as probably the commission as part of their approval for a final plan for that particular lot.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Any questions or comments to my left? Or did any additional comments regarding the turn lane? Obviously, you've made your, okay. Yes, sir. Vice Chair Pfizer.
I have a question about the design of the site, and I know this is preliminary, but I'm curious as to why the retail is in that corner versus being closer to the hotel, where I would think it would generate more business and maybe kind of buffer the apartments from the retail.
Mr. Sir, do you have something?
I know that's not part of
Obviously,
it.
developer has the ability to decide what they want to provide information on at this point, but it's within their discretion with regard to locations for any items specifically on the property, based upon what their determinations are for best use.
So can I ask?
If he would like to make a statement, he is absolutely welcome to.
So with the site design, we just felt like that flowed the very best, and we felt like, you know, the amount of traffic that is, I mean, Dean's seeing every day at this point in time. Plus, now you're adding in the units that are the homes that are coming in across the street with the Watermark project, and now you've got ours, and so we felt like that created a good funnel point for retail, and so. And then obviously Matt kind of talked about it a bunch in the opening presentation, but our feeling is that, you know, for a hotel site, that's the premium location that we have here on the project. And so it was just kind of a site flow. It's to your point, it's probably a little bit of preferential, but that was our preference on how we felt like everything flowed and worked the best together.
Okay. Thanks.
Any additional questions to my left? I did have a couple little quick ones, one of which I believe you guys have probably already addressed regarding the Alair project that's to the immediate south of Johnson Drive between Dean and Outer, correct?
That's
okay. Obviously, this is tough because this is, you know, just a preliminary site plan kind of thing, but one of the things that I always have concern over, you know, we get these really pretty pictures of what something could look like. Obviously, with the development of apartments, you know, the developer has a little more control over that versus maybe in a hotel. You know, you said people have standards. Just from my knowledge, since the multiple years I've been on the commission, we've not had a hotel come across our desk. When it comes to, you know, let's say a Marriott brand or a Hilton brand or whatever the brand may be, you know, they probably have certain design standards, but does the developer have kind of a, like, hey, we want it to look like this because it meets the look of our you know, the rest of our plan? And then I just don't know, because we've never had this come across where, you know, I like the look of it, of how they've designed it, but if, you know, Holiday Inn comes in with their new styling of, which I am not exactly a big fan of what their current designers chosen as a paint scheme, that's not what I would like to have out here. Obviously, I know Mr. Zur is getting a little acid reflux of me asking these kind of questions, but just curious what a developer has over control. Do they have any control, I should say, over what the look and feel on their property, or is it really up to the hotel developer?
So that brings up a good point. As was discussed earlier, the PUD zoning provides a lot more latitude for what the city can look at with these requests to make sure that if it's going to be approved, if we're going to move forward, It should be for these reasons of what is included in the request to get to that point. That makes sense. So within the MOU, you'll see that they did submit the preliminary elevations of what each individual use would look like. Within those three components, the developer is committed to doing the retail component and the multifamily component themselves. That, in their presentation, as they indicated, was kind of their specialty or their niche. They have indicated some interest in building the hotel themselves, and I'll let the developer elaborate on that more. But in the event that they do sell it to a Hilton or a Hyatt or somebody else, you're correct that those brands do have their own architectural elements that they like to have on their buildings. So within the PUD and likely in the MOU, what staff could insert to maybe address that is clarify the distinction between the two. What staff would want to ensure is that what we're being shown here with this request is a very nicely designed building. So there could be language in there that if it's substantially different than what's contained in their request, it should be for the positive, meaning it's an improvement to the design and not the detriment of that. So there would likely be some language we could add to this if that was something the commission wanted a little more latitude on, because I would agree you could run into the position where you attract a really nice hotel, but their design is a lot different than what was in here. I think staff would probably support that as long as it was an improvement for a quality hotel chain. But again, that's the benefit to the city of the PUD, is it provides a lot more latitude for things that aren't usually able to be considered with a standard conventional zoning district.
Sure. And I see Mr. Zer with his finger on the button.
Legal vigorously agrees. I would also represent to you the page 7 of the MOU, which talks in terms of under section 7A, B, and C there, preliminary development plan is being approved with conceptual building elevations and designs for the proposed residential, hotel, and commercial uses. Buildings and structures proposed as part of the final development plan shall be consistent with the elevations and designs contained in the preliminary development plan, subject to the approval of the Planning and Zoning Commission. So you're still going to be able to have some additional control and say over it ultimately,
Sure.
Whether that be coming forward from the developer or from the building branding that they're looking for individually.
Thank you. So that ultimately stems from another project that this commission has approved that had these beautiful graphics of what the exterior of a development was going to be. And I know you're laughing because you know exactly what I'm talking about, and you knew this question was coming, and probably that it was coming from me. Although it seems to be a well-occupied place, I am very disappointed with the outcome and the look and feel of that. That's not what our commission approved, and it doesn't look anything like what was approved by this commission. And so that's ultimately where this comes from, is I don't want to be duped again, so to say. And I realize that your department has some latitude as far as requests and changes, and this is a preliminary site plan, but that's my ultimate problem, is if this is, especially at potentially 70 feet above the highway, what is proposed in these plans does look good, and we get a lot of pushback of, oh my God, no more apartments in Raymore. But if something looks good, and it is something that as you're coming into town you do see, I just don't want to end up with something that's not as presented, and that's my ultimate concern, is if we do have something that does stand above and beyond and is the first look and feel of our city, because prices of materials are constantly changing, and somebody sleeps wrong and decides to change the look and feel, and that's ultimately my biggest concern, is if this gets approved by this commission, that it stays to the expectation level of our commission versus what is finally done. And I do see the applicant is raising his hand, and I see Matt, shaking his head in agreement with that. But
well, I just wanted to mention that a couple things. One, that as we've done in the past and as we'll continue to do into the future, it's important to us that we do exactly what we say we're going to do, and we build what we're depicting we're going to build, right?
Sure.
And so, but one extra thing that I would say about this, just kind of along those lines, is those are real plans. I mean, we're developing a project that looks very, very similar to this project over in Lee Summit right now. So the elevations that you're seeing, they're not something that I drew up somewhere and brought over to you guys, right? They're based off of actual plans. So hopefully that,
it does. But then again, we literally had materials handed to us of this is what this is going to look like, and not a single one of those materials ended up on the project at all. And so they were legitimate plans, and so that's my ultimate concern is, and I do appreciate you coming forward and stating that, because I would want to hold you to your word. So thank you. And then I know this is kind of going on and on and on. and I emailed you guys in advance, just always curious whenever we talk about multifamily, as you pull out your spreadsheet there. Just quick 30-second rundown of where we are on total units in the city, occupancy rates if we have them, as well as planned. I know some projects are waiting lists, and we have another 1,000 units in development. Would be another 300 units on top of that, but any information would be appreciated, sir.
Absolutely. So staff does track, as projects are approved, we add those to our building lot inventory, more or less is what we call it. But that tracks how many homes are in a subdivision, how many undeveloped lots are left, and so forth. But through those calculations, right now, over what is built, I mean, somebody could move into it today, there are 9,876 dwelling units in the city that are occupiable overall. Within those, what staff tracks these in a kind of a flow chart. Detached single family, meaning traditional single family homes, 2-family units and multifamily units, which would be your duplexes and fourplexes, and then apartment units, which is everything above that. Out of those 9,800 units, right now there's 791 apartment units in the city. That includes the 396 that are at the lofts at Fox Ridge, 269 at Manor Homes, and then there's actually 126 units within Foxwood Springs that are classified as apartments as well. The rest are duplexes and fourplexes for the most part. So as it stands right now, 74% of our inventory is detached single family. 18% is 2 and 4 family units. 8% would constitute what is an apartment in the city. So that would be what is existing right now. We also track, as staff has meetings with developers about potential projects, we track if this were to be approved, here's what would happen to those numbers. So understanding what I just went over there are other projects that are kind of looming out there for staff. So you've got the Ridgeview Estates, the senior project, that's additional townhomes. The Ascend at Raymore, which is the townhome project, Watermark, which is 300 units currently under construction. So, but then you also have all the single-family subdivisions that are kind of approved for preliminary development as well. So staff takes in all those different lot numbers into account. But essentially, if you take into consideration what is existing versus what is preliminary approved for future construction, in total, there's 9,640 single-family homes and single-family lots that will be built in the future. Right now, there is 500 two-family units. There are none that have been pre-approved. We're out of those lots, more or less, right now. There is approximately 1,774 multifamily units, meaning the townhomes that are existing and or approved. Relative to the apartments, there are currently 444 that are either under review or approved for some sort of next step in their process. That would bring that total to about 1,235 existing or approved. Given the fact that our lot breakdown is pretty diverse from a lot of single family to some multifamily, the percentages actually only change about 2% throughout those numbers. So if this project were to go forward, that would add an additional 299 units, but that would only impact those numbers 2 to 3%, given all the other projects aside as well. And as you mentioned, Commissioner Wiggins did ask staff for any information on occupancy rates for existing apartments in the city. We were only able to look at the lofts at Fox Ridge and the Manor Homes of Eagle Glen. Manor Homes was approximately 94% occupied, and the lofts right now indicated they were 91% occupied.
All right. Thank you. Those do kind of conclude my questions. I don't know if that brings up questions for anybody else. Mayor Turnbow, sir.
Yeah, so we touched on it earlier, and Jake or Matt, either one of you can talk to this. When Mr. Faulkner brought up about the trash receptacles. Given my knowledge of human nature over my 40 years of police work, there are going to be some that will create some trash unexpectedly that would likely want to get rid of it fairly quickly. And it just seems like even though you might have an ongoing trash pickup, it would seem like it would make sense to have one available to each building. And I just didn't know how much of a headache would that be to design that into the project itself.
Thank you, Mayor. So a couple things. there is limited space, right? We're trying to create as much green space as we possibly can. We're trying to have these in locations where you can access them fairly easily, so especially for the trucks that are doing the pickups and things like that. And then also the ones that we're proposing, the trash compactors, they're a little bit larger because you have to bring in a bigger bin basically for that actual compactor. At Echelon, for instance, we had one trash compactor for the entire project there, and it was located on one of the sides. At Venue, for instance, we kind of learned from that because it worked out fine. It just ended up being something where our maintenance had to go to it literally every day to make sure that it was cleaned up and looking the way that we expect it to look all the time, right? So on the Venue, we added a second one, and we added them at 2 different locations throughout the property so that, again, they were more easily accessible. That's the same thought process here. So, I mean, a lot of people would do potentially one compactor on a project like this. I think if you were to go to what you're talking about as far as having one outside of every building, then they probably would no longer be compactors because of the spacing and just the requirements. You probably wouldn't need them to be compactors, which are, compactors are, like I said, bigger, they're more expensive, all those different things on the front end to put in. So it's a long way around it. I think if you were to do one outside of every building, you probably would go away from that trash compactor model. And I don't know that that's the biggest benefit for our.
I get that. I guess maybe I wasn't thinking about the compactor part of it, so that makes sense. Stay there. Have you guys thought about, and I know this is kind of throwing a curveball here, but given the demographics that Matt spoke of early, or when he started off his talk about people interested in these types of apartments, have you, because I know I sit on the chamber, and I know that there is a constant call there about plus 55. Have you thought about designating one of these buildings as a strictly plus 55 domicile so that you could, serve that community? People of like-mindedness would live within that particular section for purposes of privacy and so forth?
That's a good question. So I'll be honest, I've never contemplated something like that on an entire market rate project, interweaving them. What I would say is this, though. We will have an amenity package. We have elevator services that are there. All these things that are going to be able to support that person that is an active adult that's, potentially going to live in an apartment community like this, because we expect that we'll have plenty of them here, quite frankly. We didn't even have the elevator service at Echelon, and we still had our 2 biggest cohorts were young 20-somethings that were early professionals that were moving back into town, and they were retirees. So I'd expect that we'll see plenty of that. I don't know exactly what that would entail if we were to try to implement a project like that where you had a portion of it that was set up for that, age targeted or so forth. But we will have plenty of things that will appeal to that potential person.
Okay, thank you for the answer. And also, I just wanted to compliment you as well. When we were considering the venue, there was a different design on that, and he worked very well with staff to put in a design that did fit within the community. And I've always appreciated that of Jake, that he did do that on that particular project, because he did have to make some alterations on that. What we thought might be, and then we started catching heat on the other. You guys did do that, and we appreciate that. So
Yeah,
thank you,
we
Jay.
always want to be a good partner to staff.
Thank you,
Yep,
sir.
Absolutely.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Any additional questions or comments? Oh, yes, sir. Yeah, Matt. No, go ahead. Yeah, buddy.
Sorry, Matt Griffin Riley, and I can't help with my business development hat. If you have 25 acres in Raymore, we have a 55-plus product we love to bring. So but I definitely believe there's a huge demand for that. I don't know where Raymore Senior Village is at, but yeah, we have a reunion product that is fantastic for that.
Thank you.
But piggybacking on that, has there been consideration of, because what the mayor's kind of mentioning, I've seen mixed use or mixed income housing like this, where it's variety of income levels can live in the same community, but throughout, and there's incentives behind doing that from a, development standpoint. But to that point, has there been anybody that's been looking at doing something like that, where you have specifically 55 plus or have income-based housing within the properties?
In one single development?
Yeah.
No, we have not contemplated that. I know there may be a handful, one or two, that contemplates that in like downtown Kansas City or some type of environment like that. But we feel really strongly for this product at this location for Raymore. It's a ton of demand for that.
I would say if you guys haven't been to the Echelon where they have over there by just west of Walmart off of 150, it's a pretty nice project over there.
All right. Any final questions or comments from members of the commission? All right. And even though we don't have any public comment, I never did close the public hearing, so I will do that at this time just for formal sake. So that is closed, 7:15. That's done. That's done. Any final discussions? Otherwise, I would entertain a motion to dispose of this item, please.
Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion that the P&Z accept the staff proposed findings of fact in forward case number 23007, the rezoning of 22.31 acres from R3AP multifamily residential plan district to PUD planned unit development district to the city council with a recommendation of approval subject to the 3 outlined conditions.
I'd second that motion.
Okay, I've got, let me just get my PDF up here. I've got a motion by Commissioner Kia, second by Mayor Turnbow to, let me find the exact, there we go, to accept the staff proposed finding of fact in forward case 23007, rezoning of 22.31 acres from R3AP multifamily residential plan district to PUD planned unit development district to city council with a recommendation of approval subject to the 3 outlined conditions. Any discussion or of the topic amongst the commission? Seeing none, all in favor? All opposed? And no abstentions, so that will pass 7-1. And as always, I do like to try to provide, when I do remember, anybody that has a nay vote, if they would like to make any particular public comment regarding it.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think I'd probably just refer back to what I said earlier about the, particularly the Dean access to the retail lot 4, and other than that, I don't feel particularly against the rest of the project in general. It's just a few details, access.
Thank you, sir. All right, so that will conclude our new business for this evening. That will take us to item 8, our city council report. Mr. Zur.
Thank you, Chairman Wiggins. Since the last Planning and Zoning Commission meeting that you all held, there's been one city council meeting where public business was conducted. That occurred on March 13th. That time, city did take up a number of items, including approval of the Parkside Memorandum and Parkside Park, so that there will be a future dog park involved. Those were all as second readings and were approved unanimously. The one item of new business that was of interest for the Planning and Zoning Commission was the Oak Ridge Farms 4th plat, lots 61 through 84, and replat of lot 58, which was put forward by Sean Siebert and representing ORF4 LLC, having requested that approval. Planning and Zoning Commission unanimously approved it and unanimously recommended to the City Council their approval as of the 7th of March. It was voted upon and unanimously approved for a first reading on the 13th. That would conclude City Council's report.
Thank you. As always, Mayor Turnbow, anything to add to his report? Thank you, sir. That will take us to staff report. I will start over here.
Thank you, sir. Just a couple of items. So April the 4th, as we know, has been canceled. We are also canceling April the 18th as well, just due to staff is still going to be kind of out of town and not a quick turnaround. So the next time we'll actually see each other again is May the 2nd. We have 2 applications for that. It'll be a site plan and a rezoning. Also wanted to make mention, just because we won't have meetings in April, you all will be emailed the monthly, just so you still keep up on those stats. And finally, just staff wanted to thank Commissioner Ingert for his service just over 2 years on the Planning Commission, and wish him the best as he proceeds on and serves Raymore at a capacity for City Council.
Thanks, sir. I will take that quick moment, even though I know I usually don't interject here, that the elections, even though our meeting is canceled on April 4th, that is Election Day. So since you don't have anything to do from 6 to 6:30, please make sure that you do go out and vote. Additional staff reports. Mr. Krass, anything from your department, sir?
Sure, just a few items to touch on. We open bids next week for the traffic signal at Dean Avenue and North Cass Parkway. Hopefully we can get ahead of the development that's occurring down there. We touched on it a little bit. Johnson Drive is currently, the missing link of Johnson Drive is currently under design. We hope to be under construction hopefully by July. So with that, and it's pothole season, so please slow down when you see the yellow lights with my guys. They have been doing quite a bit of work on 58 Highway and Dean Avenue, so give them some space. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. I do have a quick question for you. Has the curb plan for 2023, has it been released, or is that something you guys are working on?
No, that is we are currently under contract.
Okay. And I just asked because I've had a couple of folks, mostly neighbors of mine, that have just asked what would you suggest would be the best way? Obviously, major curb repair or replacement is a huge issue, but if there are sizable curb damages and whatever, is there a recommendation?
Well, currently, I've seen some of that going back. I'm sorry I cut you off.
No, you're fine.
But currently, that area is scheduled for 2025. You know, I think what's important to keep track of is at any given time, we have almost 200,000 feet of curb within town that needs to be replaced. We have enough funding for about 20,000. What complicates that is, or challenges that is, we try and coordinate that with our mill and overlay project so that we're just in a neighborhood at one time. And so as we do that, we've kind of really limited it kind of limits the territory that we can cover.
Sure. But if somebody does happen to see a major, I mean, what I would think of major, some of the spots in front of my house are probably, from a structural standpoint, maybe not that major, but if somebody has a concern, should they contact?
Well, we can do a report of concern. We've already got that on record. We do have some money for patching. We will patch just in front of the driveway, so we can take a look at that and see.
Okay. So they should
see if there's
is there
something.
similar, like the pothole report on the website, they should go to
Yes.
the Public Works Department and.
Yep.
Thank you. And then whether that's your department or not, I know every year we have like a sidewalk gap kind of thing, and a lot of times it's based on developers. Is there an easy way to figure out what spots have been? Okay, I will talk to them after the meeting. Thank you. Yes, sir.
If I could add one more comment I forgot to add, as it was mentioned, the city council elections. Tomorrow night, actually, the chamber is hosting the candidate forum for both city council and school board candidates. It'll be in the council chambers tomorrow night starting at 7. So feel free to attend that. I did want to share that in case anybody was curious.
Perfect. Thank you. Anybody have any questions of any of the folks from city departments? All right. I believe that is it for various staff reports, unless I'm missing anything. We don't have anybody else here, so public comment, as always. If anybody's in the hall, please come forward. Seeing none, that'll move us into commission member comments. I'm going to start, you know what, I'm going to start, Mr. Ingert, I'm going to give you first dibs tonight, sir.
I'd like to say that I've thoroughly enjoyed my time in planning and zoning. I appreciate all the hard work and dedication and the thoroughness of your works and efforts. It sure made this part easy. It's a good learning experience for me, and I hope to take what I've learned on to the city council. And I just would like to express my gratitude and thanks for all your hard work and effort, to include my fellow commissioners here on the Planning and Zoning Committee as well.
Thank you, sir. I'm going to jump all the way to my right to Commissioner Manser, sir.
Well, firstly, congratulations to Mr. Commissioner, future Councilman Ingert. It's a big deal, and glad to see you moving up to bigger places. So thank you to staff, as always. Exciting seeing all the developments that are going around, dirt moving, the wasteland behind Sonic, and makes me excited for the future. Glad to live here.
Thanks, sir. Vice Chair Fizer.
Well, first let me say I'm going to miss my neighbor here. What you might not know is whenever I've had to step into your spot, he brings me a cookie. And I've really appreciated that. They've been very good. I'd like to thank staff for all their help, and kind of helping us through all this. I liked sort of this three-part information tonight. That was actually really informative. And I'm looking forward to the Planning and Zoning Convention, or the Planning Convention. So hopefully I'll learn a lot and come back and share my knowledge.
Perfect. Secretary Peterman?
Not much tonight. Thanks, staff. You always do a good job.
Commissioner Urquilla?
Yeah, congratulations and good luck. I'm also going to miss my neighbor. Appreciate staff, everything you all do, as always. Easy to follow what you guys prepare and present, so appreciate the hard work. Thank you so much.
Mr. Faulkner?
First, I want to thank the rest of the commission for the questions this evening. There were a lot of questions that I didn't ask. I'm very glad that someone else on the commission asked those questions because I found that very informative. I'll just make a comment on this particular case. In my experience, this was certainly one of the more complicated, difficult cases that I can remember, and the developer obviously has put a tremendous amount of work into this already and had an excellent presentation. I'm always bothered by the snags, and in this case, I don't think there were a lot. There were just a few. I don't like passing something on to City Council with those things unresolved. It will be interesting to see this when it comes back, going forward, site plan, whatever we see next. And certainly thanks to all of staff. I think that all of you added a lot to the meeting this evening, so thank you all.
Thank you, sir. Mayor Turnbow?
Most of the comments have been made already, and I appreciate those comments. I also wanted to add that House Bill 909 will be read for the third time after beginning of session tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. You can watch that live online if you'd like to, and listen to it. And myself, Mr. Fearborn, Mr. Murdoch, and Melissa Harmer will be down there for that. So hopefully we'll send good vibes down there, and that'll get passed through over to the Senate, and then some more hard work will begin on the Senate side. But thank you.
Thank you, sir. As always, thank you, city staff, for all the work that you guys do. Obviously, a lot goes into all these meetings, and you guys provide us a lot of great information. And thank you. I know that I always have a bunch of kind of left field questions, but I appreciate you taking care of getting some information and educating us with facts, which is what's most important. Mr. Engert, good luck to you, sir. It's been fun having you. I'll be interested to see what our newest member of the commission, who that will be.
It's really easy when you run unopposed.
I wasn't going to mention that. Elections are still a few weeks away, but already congratulations on winning.
Well, Mr. Chair, if all goes well,
yes.
Eric Smith, who's also lives in Ward 4, he's a deputy fire chief. I asked him if he'd wish to fill Mr. Engert's position, so it'll be up to the council to approve that, but that's who I will be recommending.
Wonderful. Thank you for that information. That'll also provide some great additional insight from if he's brought to the commission of his experience as far as some of the types of discussions that we had tonight regarding turning around large equipment. Other than that, I don't think I really have a whole heck of a lot. One comment, and it's just something to ponder for city staff. As we continue to have lots of development and things coming in, obviously we always want to look at the plans and look at the facts in front of us, figure out highest and best use for everything. Mr. Zur is that's one of his favorite things. But I think we've talked maybe offline, or at least not in this setting of having what might be allowed, and not that this is this case by any means is an instance of this, but previous cases of obviously, if something is allowed within an area that's in its zone, we are kind of handcuffed, so to say, in a polite term. But if there were any, as we continue to think of strategic plans and visions of our city, and obviously we've had lots of great businesses come here, but occasionally somebody wants to bring a business that we maybe have 25 of, and we don't know if we need them anymore, but we can't do anything about it. If there's anything to ponder or think, and I know that Mr. Zer is probably sitting here going, Chairman, be quiet. But would love to see how we could explore how our commission has some say of what some of our, some of the things that we approve. Obviously, if somebody is following all the guidelines, there's not a whole lot we can do about it legally, maybe, but it would be nice to have some better understanding of our strategic plan, or if we already have a bunch of something or another something, that we have some sort of information or facts to back up our own opinions when it comes to, maybe telling somebody that we don't know that we necessarily need that. So I do see Mr. Faulkner kind of raising his hand politely over here. But.
Sorry. I've spoken already. I just wanted to comment back to you, and the rest of the commission should probably hear this, but in my experience, one of our biggest levers to address your concerns actually goes clear back to the very beginning, the growth management plan, alias comprehensive plan, whatever. And that's from the Planning and Zoning Commission perspective. I realize it's 40,000 feet, pie in the sky, but again, from the Planning and Zoning Commission, I wanted to throw that plug in that, and I know we're in the process of a major rewrite, I guess, wouldn't be an understatement. So let's keep an eye on that.
Look forward to it. With that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn this evening's meeting.
Mr. Chair.
Oh,
Sorry.
did I get a so moved over here and a Mr. Chair over here?
Second.
Okay.
You call it.
All right. I got a so moved by Commissioner Urquilla, and I imagine Commissioner Faulkner would be seconding that. Is that a correct assumption?
Absolutely.
Wonderful. Any discussion of the matter? If not, saying all in favor of adjourning, we are adjourned. Thank you. 8-0.